Okay, ladies and gentlemen, how are you feeling tonight?
Good!
Excellent. Well, today is a big day because today we're going to make a new ground for hip-hop to be brought into the kind of discourse that we normally don't think about hip-hop entering, such as education, politics, all aspects of the world. I'm going to start out with a quote. This is a quote from when I watched a hip-hop symposium that had been going on at Princeton in 2006. And at this symposium, there was Representative Maxine Waters. And what she did, I'm going to read you the quote to kind of kick off what we're trying to do here. If you conform to the outline of the establishment on the way these hearings take place, she was talking about some stuff that's going on with the FCC. Those people who sit at the front of the room to be heard are people who sit there because they're an elected official or because they're head of this or what have you. I mean, the hip-hop communities gotta walk in the room, fill up the whole room, and say, I wasn't invited, but I'm here. I intend to speak, y'all gonna let me speak, and I got something to say. I mean, you got to change the way things are done and handled, or you're not gonna have an influence. So that's what we're trying to do here, to fill the whole room up with hip-hop and have an influence. Some of the things that I've been talking about today, this is kind of the third major speech, or third or fourth major time that I've been talking about these issues out in the public. First, there was the State of the Scantron Union address earlier this year, and then there was a community open discussion which is happening with the Board of Education at Lafayette, and I could really see when went in there and tried to talk about some ideas I was having about student identity. That when I was one thing I had mentioned was that a lot of kids, they feel like they're being forced or confined into a certain place against their culture for every single day, Monday through Friday, almost like it was an internment camp. And the Board of Education actually, it seemed like they were turning the microphone off. So this time, we're going to be able to not have anyone cut us off, because hip-hop is in the house! Is hip-hop in the house? Okay, so the first thing that a lot of people ask me about hip-hop is what is the difference between hip-hop and rap? Is everyone able to hear me? So hip-hop is an entire culture with many, many arts. It has different values. So hip-hop is a broad culture, whereas rap is just one part, the spoken word part of hip-hop. That's one of the arts. Right now, because rap music is so marketable, people think that's the entire culture. But the culture has many, many aspects to it. The traditional story that's told in a lot of books about the history of hip-hop is that it started at a party on August 11, 1973 in the Bronx by DJ Kool Herc. Later that year, the Universal Zulu Nation on November 12, 1973 formed the first hip-hop society, which was trying to move people away from gang violence and enter into more positive ways of communicating, such as arts, such as rapping, DJing, the street and visual arts, and B-dance. The rapper at that time was called the MC. So those were the first four arts that were brought in. Those are called the four elements of hip-hop. DJing, MCing/rap, visual and street art, and breedance, what they call dancing over the break. Later on, the fifth element was added, called knowledge. So that's kind of where the speech starts. When we talk about the 28 points I'm going to be discussing tonight, the first 5 of those points, the first 4 points, DJing, MCing, street and visual arts, and the dance, were actually ones that started out at the very beginning of hip-hop. The first parties had all of these. For example, DJ Kool Herc, who was one of the first DJs, who people call the first DJ. He was also designing up using street art styles, his own flyers. You can look online and see the flyers for the first party. And some people even called him the first MC, even though other people would call Coke Rock his later MC, the first MC, because he was making small announcements. Some people even call Cool Herc the first MC. And what Cool Herc would do is he would extend the breaks to make them longer. A break is a part of the music where there's no lyrics. It's just going, it's just, like for example, if they're going da 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 da. Here, I'll start on up here. So if the beginning of a song starts like this, then you could loop it up and extend it. You see, so now it's going indefinitely. It's actually just one part of the music. And then the MC would get up, and the MC would rhyme. And at the early days of hip-hop, they didn't have the elaborate rhymes like they have now. They'd just be, hip-hop, you don't stop. Hip-hop, you don't stop. Don't quit, like that. And they would get everyone going. Don't sit, don't quit, see me sit quick, wanna slip with it. And they would just keep saying simple rhymes. I'll show you, if I let the song play out, you see there's actual lyrics afterwards. Okay, well normally there's actual lyrics going on and they would just take the instrumental part. And the first DJs used to use vinyl. So here we have vinyl. And a lot of days now people use the electronic DJ instrument, the electronic DJ sound such as Serato. But I found that going back and actually trying this technique with the vinyl is an important part of the history. I think we shouldn't let the vinyl die. Actually, hip-hop as a culture was expressing everything that can be found in hip-hop could have been found earlier in other cultures. All cultures, they have MCing, speaking, a lot, they're told of stories. And actually from the griots of ancient Africa and even Africa today, the griots were the storytellers who would keep alive the values or the traditions or the stories of the people of that community. So the MC has to fill that role. Also with the DJ, who brings up samples from the past and reinterprets the history, that is something that the griots would do as well. So with the DJ taking ideas from previous history and combining it in new ways, and then the spoken arts. So a lot of kids nowadays, when they're into hip hop, it's a lot different than the early days. That's because when you listen, you hear a lot of different messages that some people might say are negative messages, such as misogyny, love of money, violence, there's a lot of obscenities, there's a lot of different messages now in the modern hip-hop. But in the early hip-hop, you didn't have that. Like, for example, I'm going to play you a track in a second, and this track is by a group called Funky 4+1. And when I went to Cornell University's opening of the hip-hop archive, I was able to meet a lot of pioneers. And one of the pioneers I had met was named MC Shyrock. And MC Shyrock was the first, people call it the first female MC in a group. And actually it's an interesting story because there had been someone from the Cold Crush Brothers there, and I asked him, I said, because they had been saying, MC Shyrock is the first female MC up on stage, she's the first female MC. So I went up to someone who had said that, I said, I had read in another book that a rapper named Pebbly Pooh was the first female MC. And he said, so could you tell me what the difference is there? Because I was trying to get knowledge. And he said, Pebbly Pooh was the first female MC to be solo, and MC Shyrock was the first female MC in a group. And I walked away thinking, oh, he answered my question. Then I realized he didn't really answer my question, because he never told me who the first female MC was. So these kind of knowledge, I've been getting that knowledge because I believe students in the classroom, if they have a proper understanding of the hip-hop history and the hip-hop arts, they'll develop and grow their soul in a way that previous cultures have been able to interact and bring out in people. So I believe every teacher who wants to really be a hip-hop teacher, for example, I've got a master's in education for teaching English as a second language. If you really want to be a hip-hop teacher, you probably should have some turntables in your classroom. Have a microphone in your classroom. Until you can do that, it's hard to represent real hip-hop in the classroom. So I'm going to show you a little track quick. This is a funky 4+1. This is from 1979, the first year hip-hop was on vinyl. And I actually have a lot of the original hip-hop vinyls, and a lot of them I got for only 33 cents because you can go and dig in the crates now and find them. I actually found this vinyl a day or two after I met Shyrock, and then I happened to find Funky 4+1, a track I'd known for a while called Rapping and Rockin' a House. I'm just going to put this on for a second and show you early days of hip-hop. Sorry about that. This character actually goes on. Let's see how long it is.
Now we're the funky four. And I'm the plus one more. And this is the way we go back and forth. With the 5 MCs down all too much. When we rock the mic, so with the magic touch. And we're on time. We're masterminds. We hypnotize when we run down the rhyme. Them 4 fly guys, I'm the best female. I told them to choose, not the first tale. Check now, listen to the story that the 5 put down. And it's guaranteed, so let the travel around.
So that was Shyrock. The female that you heard was MC Shyrock. So if I had my students in the classroom, I could put this track on, teach them a little bit about history. We could study the lyrics that are in the song, and I could say I actually personally met someone from the song. That's why, as a hip-hop educator, I think things like going to the Bronx, like when I went to 1520 Sedgwick Avenue, where they said the first hip-hop party happened, doing these things gives you a rep, gives you real reputation. Because the kids know whether you know what you're talking about or not. And right now there's no real teachers that I see who can tell the kids authority about their own culture because they don't have enough of an investment in the culture that the kids are living in. And so the culture is being dictated to them by the mass media and the messages that are being projected to them. So what I'm saying is you have kids growing up in a hip-hop culture, a teacher has to be able to understand and express that culture, or else you have a dichotomy or a split. So one book I had read was called Hip Hop versus Mod. It had been recommended to me by a colleague who is interested in Afrocentric education. And I'm just going to read you a quote from this book, what it says. Hip-hop is a highly dynamic culture whose very nature is change. This dynamism has even been captured in the term the flavor, short for flavor of the month. This implies that trends are cycled monthly. The street life of a message refers to the time it has in value, or is viewed as part of the culture. Messages typically have a very limited street life. So in this book, it also proposes that because of the fluid nature that the book states hip-hop has, that values should be used in order to create a full society that has values within it. Okay, so in this book, Mod versus Hip-Hop, one of the first books to look at values in hip-hop, it says that due to lack of values in hip-hop, it believes they should institute the values which have been adopted as the values of the 7 cardinal virtues of Mott, which was a system that came from Egypt, and which are truth, justice, harmony, balance, reciprocity, and order. And then it also mentions the Guzo Saba and the values that are used for the Kwanzaa. And it states these as umoja, unity, Kujichagulia, self-determination, Ujima, collective work and responsibility, Ujama, cooperative economics, Nia, purpose, and Kumba, creativity, as well as Imani, faith. And these are the 7 virtues of Kwanzaa, because the book states that hip-hop is fluid and doesn't have values. But although I agree with him that values are needed to create a full hip-hop society, the way I found the values, instead of looking towards Afrocentrism and other cultures, I looked at the homegrown culture of hip-hop as it naturally evolved through anthropological research. For example, we wouldn't want the school system to come and use a Eurocentric version of what values it thought hip-hop had without using empirical evidence based on real hip-hop. For the same reason, I believe, although hip-hop could be in line with all the Afrocentric values I just expressed, it has its own natural values within it as it grew out as a culture. So that's how I came up with the 28. This book and this discussion of values was one of the influences for me codifying the 28 values which I was coming up with. Another person who had been helping me a lot, I had been talking with, who had done hip-hop scholarship. Well, one of them was named Davey D, and Davey D does a lot of hip-hop. If you look online and see Davey D's website, he does hip-hop scholarship and interviews. For example, one interview I seen on Davey D was with Ice-T. Who here knows Ice-T? Well, when I was in school, this is almost 10 years ago, and I was still deciding what I wanted to do with my life. I was doing art. I saw a show called Ice-T's Rap School. And on Ice-T's Rap School, he was teaching some kids over in England about the history of hip-hop. And when I saw that, I thought, what if instead of is just an artist trying to do a rap school, I really went into the education system, learned the methods of real education practice and tried to apply them to the real lives of the students. When I watched so Ice-T was a big influence. Without his show, I maybe never would have gotten my master's. And when I graduated, I had a 3.9, so Ice-T is kind of responsible for my 3.9 in some way. So go Ice-T. But when I watched Davey D's interview with Ice-T, he was talking very passively about pimping, about how he had been a pimp before, and he was talking about it. And this is one of my idols who had influenced me. So I did a lot, on another episode of Davey D, he had someone named Ron Stallworth, who was the gang intelligence specialist and supervisor for Utah, the entire state of Utah. And he had written 2 books, Bringing the Noise, Gangster Reality Rap and Dynamics of Black Social Revolution, and Gangster Code, the sociological implications of gangster rap music and hip-hop culture. These are 2 very well-written scholarly texts. And he was also one of the people, after I got in contact with him, had helped me see how to do real hip-hop scholarship. Well, he had said when he had Ice-T never had a criminal record based on all the files he was able to access. Then, going further, I saw Ice-T when he was on Arsenio Hall. When Ice-T was on Arsenio Hall, he was asked about pimping and hustling, aka selling drugs. And he said that he never really pimped, or he was more into hustling. So that was actually some further evidence I got about Ice-T. Then, when he was on a show called Kiss My Badass, Ice-T's Guide to Blaxploitation Cinema, he says that as an artist, he was around those kind of things, but he rather would portray, he had been influenced by a book which had come out many years before by a man named Iceberg Slim. And Iceberg Slim had written books about being a pimp and this had created the idea in the psyche of America and black society. And then later on, a movie called The Mac came out with a character named Goldie, and that had, around the same time as movies such as Really Dynamite and other movies, that started to have this pimp persona. And in that documentary, Ice-T said that he had used the idea of Iceberg Slim, where he actually got the name Ice from, he says in the documentary, and ideas from movies such as The Mac, and created the pimp sort of story that he would tell, to try and tell moralistic stories. It was only later on other documentaries that he said that he really engaged in these actions, whereas earlier he says that he did it to tell stories. So this kind of brings us to a whole concept of truth, and the kind of research we have to do to get truth. I had to go through many, many archives in order to bring the little bit of information that I'm bringing to you right now. So we've talked about DJing a little bit, and we've talked about MCing. Does everybody kind of get, if you understand pretty much about DJing, raise your hand now after the speech. If you still want, well actually the DJ, you can use that metaphor a lot in the classroom in many different ways too. For example, our entire universe from the beginning of creation to now is almost like been one big DJ set. We've been living in one big DJ set. And it's almost like the universe, or the creator of the universe, is the ultimate DJ who started it in motion. And as we could be by our actions, we're almost like the assistant DJs. That's kind of a metaphor. You can tell the kids. Every moment, we're adding to the mix of life, making it a little bit different. Instead of buying this food that hurts the environment, or this food that is sustainable, you're adding to the sound of the grand mixtape of life. Yeah. With MC, thank you. So we also talk about MCing, rap, and spoken word. Well, street and visual art, that's actually, I like to show you an example of some ways you can use students' creative power. Because right now, a lot of times nowadays people are talking about whether we should still teach cursive in school. I don't know if anyone's heard that debate, because cursive is the older way of writing. A lot of kids nowadays don't learn cursive. But my idea is, if you teach the kids a lot about many fonts, the same way you would do when you're doing street art, the big pieces that you see up behind as walls, or when you see them on the subway cars. A lot of times if you can write your name in giant fonts with red fire coming out and blue bubbles in the middle of the letters, you're definitely going to be able to write your name. And it might even inspire you to learn cursive. So I think the hip-hop arts of using visual arts, even starting with your name, will teach kids how to read easy. And then there's a lot about visual art that helps the mind. It's one of the actions and arts that humankind has interacted with since the beginning of time. In all cultures you see visual arts, and I think that's something that should be endorsed. Up here I actually have it from an assignment I gave some kids in my class, where they had to pick around 50 words that describe an image. I don't know if you can see it. This is a hummingbird. It's made completely out of words. And the words such as fast, flapping, flipping, fluttering are on it, and then when it's got to leave, it says green leaf. So this is kind of combining words and teaching vocabulary using the visual arts. And in just one day, the kids were able to do beautiful artworks that also incorporated words and learning English. We got the bee dance, and actually, because like I was saying, back in the day, everyone used to try and strive. A lot of people, so there were certain people who would try and strive to master all the hip-hop arts. And as a hip-hop educator, I believe you should try and master as many of the hip-hop arts. Actually, I designed a big graffiti mural when I was doing the last 2 shows ago with Jeremy and Jerome, and I'm also mastering the street art. So B dance. B stands for break. The part I was showing you, we can loop the instrumental music. So, like I was saying, about a year ago, I wasn't able to do hardly any dance that was going on the ground or doing flips or anything. But because I wanted to master the hip-hop arts to impress the kids, so they would have some respect for what I was saying, understand the work that goes into being a real hip-hop, a real true hip-hop being at the highest sense, I think I'll just put on a track for a second and show you a little example of some dance. It could have gone on for about an hour or so. If you want to check out Electric Thursdays, you see a little bit of that stuff going on. But I just didn't want to take up too much of the speech. Rock came last night. I did about 4 or 5 flips in a row. It was one of the first times I did that. I won a special award, King of Donaroo, for dancing 24 hours and 48 hours. And that's something you can tell the kids and say, you know, if you work hard enough, you can achieve like this. So peace, now that we've gone through DJ and MC, street art, and B-dance, we have peace, love, unity, and safely having fun. So these were different expressions. These were called, whereas the other four we talked about were called the elements of hip-hop. The Zulu Nation called these the principles of hip-hop. And when I talked to a lot of the hip-hop pioneers, they all said that in the early days, if it didn't have to do with peace, love, unity, or safely having fun, then they didn't consider it hip-hop. So peace. One word for peace. Who's ever heard the word salam? Some people is related to shalom too. Some people interpret that as peace or also submission to the highest powers. If we take the word hip-hop, KRS-One talks about the definition of hip-hop in his book, The Gospel of Hip-Hop. We have hip, which is your mind. So if you're hip to something, then your hip, like your mind is aware of it. You know what's going on intellectually, mentally. And hop is your action, like when you hop. That's your movement. So if your mind is in alignment with the society, with all the forces that you're interacting with, and your mind and your body are both in alignment with the universe, with your culture, and everyone around you, you're going to have peace. So that's why I think hip-hop is almost like saying salam to me, or saying Islam in a way. Which, if you take the definition of a culture that's based completely on being in accordance with the laws, I believe hip-hop, through these arts, we could create an entire culture of peace in accordance with laws of nature that we find. So how about love? Love is one of the hardest words to define, I've heard people say. Love actually, for me, I believe love is when you can step outside yourself. It has a bit to do with empathy or understanding. As a teacher, we have to have a lot of understanding and empathy in order to understand our kids. And it was through this kind of interaction that I started a lot of the research I was doing on hip-hop education, because when I saw some of the kids struggling, I had empathy for them, and I wanted to create a system that would help them in order to not have some of the struggles. Unity. Unity is when everyone is pretty much working together. Actually, they all are working together. It's something we should strive for. I believe with hip-hop, has anyone ever heard of an old movie called The Birth of a Nation? It's a very controversial old movie. In that movie, for my research, I was studying the history of cinema in America and race relations in America as they interact and relate to the present. And when I watched that movie, Birth of a Nation, at the end, there's a part where because in the movie, it has to do with the end of the Civil War. And how after the Civil War Reconstruction began, the movie tells a one-sided portrayal of, that kind of shows how they believe African Americans had, and carpetbaggers or whites from the north had colonized the South. And after a battle in the movie, the two families from the north and the south end up getting married. And it says on the screen, it says, freedom and unity, together forever, like inseparable together and forever. So that person who had made the movie, D.W. Griffith, he had understood unity from one point, the unity of the white race, but he hadn't understood unity from another point, the unity of the human race. And that's the problem. And a lot of times I've encountered the same things with Afro-American individuals who feel like hip-hop could be taken over, usurped, or have their culture stolen. they don't see the unity that can be for the whole human race. So what I believe is the unity we need nowadays is the unity of all individuals, not just one individual or some individuals. We don't want to be like D.W. Griffith, who saw unity for only some, but didn't understand unity as a whole. Right now, it's hard to think about creating states that are only for one color people, because even if you think that it would, because we're a globalized world. And in a globalized world, separation would be segregation. So safely having fun. Safely having fun is the funnest part, because it has fun in it. Who here likes to have fun? Yeah, so there's different ways to have fun. And I believe, you don't want the night to end with your life gone. So you should always think about that. When you're out having fun, are you being reckless, or are you showing a good side and letting everyone have peace? You don't want to step on people's toes. So these all go together. So these first 8 that I mentioned, all of them come from the very, very early days of hip-hop, the early 70s. DJing, MCing, street, visual art, B-dance, peace, love, unity, safely having fun. Those are the 8 we've covered. Is everyone with it so far? Okay, let's do a little chant. Peace, love, unity, safely having fun.
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 Okay, thank you. Now the next elements, or what I call cultural points, and I should say the reason I call these cultural points is because I had originally started saying elements when I was designing this, but because other organizations use the term elements, like DJ and MC, street art, B-dance were called the 4 elements, I didn't want to step on other organizations' toes, like the Zulu Nation or the Temple of Hip Hop, and came up with some of the later elements. So I decided to call them cultural points when I talk about them. So later on, KRS-One, who was an innovative MC, he formed an organization called the Temple of Hip Hop, which actually has a education division, and certain people like Swizz Beatz and other producers and educators are part of the education division of Temple of Hip Hop, and I've begun to organize with them as well. And they're talking to them and helped me prepare some of the ideas in the speech. So KRS-One, in a book called The Gospel of Hip Hop, he added some more elements that had always been in the culture that he had been seeing. So the 9th one is called beatbox. So beatbox is probably that's one of my favorites. And the old beatbox actually used to be like a beat machine, where you would press a button and the drum sound would start up. There was a track called Flashes on the Beatbox. You can find the live version of that. I was about to play it, but I forgot that I never heard it hooked up. So later on, these sounds, like when you used to press the button and have electronic sound come on, actually I can kind of show you on here what an old beatbox sound used to sound like. You would press a button and a sound would come on. I'm going to start. 1, 2, okay, Coleman, would you like to do a freestyle in a second? Okay, Coleman's going to do a little freestyle. I'm going to show you the old style of beatbox. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You good? 1, 2. Use this one, man. Alright. Get the top of this one instead. You just hop on stage. We got Coleman Broski. Let's give Coleman Broski a little clap.
What up, guys? Whenever you're ready. Circuit bending, symmetry. I'm on the beats, scantron beats, make all the heads rock. Moving slow, moving fast. Got the key ignition. I'm about to give it gas. Let's go. just let it run, and you know how it goes. Talking to the people, say just give me some more, and throw your hands up one time. Let me kick it funky round, always keep it on beat. Let me kick it double time. The mic is mine, I gotta shine. It's like that. Now keep it back, bring it back, bring it back, bring it back, bring it back like that.
Hey, Pomodrowski. So that's what the original beatbox, if you can find a track called Flashes on the Beatbox Live, that's a really good track to kind of hear early electronic beatbox. But now people started mimicking the sounds. Like if you hear the sound, I'm like boom. Thank you. So there's no effects to anything going on with that. That's just using the mouth. And actually, I've been one of the pioneers of using phonetics, which is teaching the sounds to students using beatbox. For example, what sound does the word cat start with? So what sound does the letter big start with? Boom. So big cat, big cat. Big cat, big cat, big cat, big cat, big cat, big cat. So you can teach phonetics, and there's a few different systems for notation of using beatbox for writing it out. Well, the system that I use is called an International Phonetic Alphabet, and that's because I had first been exposed to the system when I had taken some special AP classes at Genesee Community College between 11th and 12th grade, and I had been lucky enough to be on take some musicology and music classes early before going to college full-time. And I had seen a piece by a man named Luciano Berio, and it's called, I forgot how to say it in I forgot how to say it in the other language, but he called it Sequenza 3 for voice. And it had this crazy, and the way it had been written out was an International Phonetic Alphabet. It was a crazy sound, it was a crazy song, and I think I actually have it right here, so I'm going to show you.